Hello and welcome to the Healthy Education Podcast, coming to you out of health education at the Athens City County Health Department. I'm your host, Ward Bryson, the ComCore member serving with the Health Education Department this year, and I am supported by Logan Lambert behind the scenes, our sound tech, who is a ComCore member serving at Nelsonville York Schools. The goal of this podcast is to sit down and have a conversation with people who are working and serving in Athens County in order to get a better understanding of the contributions that they make to the community and how those contributions bring us towards healthier futures. This podcast is based out of the Health Education Division at Athens City County Health Department, which works to make the health choice the easy choice through policy, system, and environmental changes. Logan and myself are both serving members of ComCore, a local state national branch of AmeriCorps based out of Ohio University's Heritage College of Osteopathic Medicine, which places members throughout Athens County in order to contribute to community health in a variety of ways, many of which we'll examine during this podcast. Today, our guest is Jess Fritz from the Athens Photo Project. Hello, Jess.
Hi, Ward.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this.
I'm also excited because you're a listener to the podcast as well, you've said.
Yeah. Well, as of last week, I'm a listener to the podcast, and I'm going to listen more because I love them.
Okay. I very much appreciate that. I'm sure Logan does too. Logan's nodding right now. First things first, as we do with all of our guests, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself personally, how you're related to this general area, to our community, how you found yourself here?
Okay. Yeah, well, I grew up in Tuscarawas County, which is the very northern tip of Appalachia in Ohio. I was really outdoorsy and artsy and musical as a child. I was in the marching band, drumline. Then I attended Bowling Green State University up in Northwest Ohio. I loved the school, but I really missed the hills. So I started finding my way slowly via Columbus, back down into this area. I started exploring Southeast Ohio, attending some events and volunteering at events at a campground down here, and just fell in love with it, and I had to live here. And so I moved here in 2010. I married my current partner in 2013, and we welcomed a son in 2015. I kind of discovered APP by accident. And but then I eventually found my way in, volunteered there for 2 years. I've interviewed for a couple of jobs there over those 2 years and didn't make it in, but then was offered the ComCore position as a kind of a step into working there. And I accepted, and I've been there since last August.
How long have you been doing photography that got you connected with APP?
I started photography toward the end of my high school years. My dad gave me a camera. He was a photographer, and my grandfather was also a photographer. Hobbyist, but it was a popular hobby back then to have a little darkroom in your basement, and that's what they did. And my dad gave me a camera that only half worked, I found out.
Half worked how?
Yeah, and I was like so into it, like immediately I'm like, well, now I have to go get a degree in it to learn how to use this thing better. And that's what I did. So I've been doing it probably since 2002. Yeah, I've been doing this for like 20 years. Wow.
No, that really is a wow. And the fact that it's kind of a family tradition that's been picked up and passed along.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. All right. So you serve with the Athens Photo Project. Mm-hmm. What is the Athens Photo Project?
The Athens Photo Project is a teaching studio for people with chronic and or severe mental health diagnoses. The goal and the whole mission of the classes is to use photography as a tool for self-expression, to help kind of bust the stigmas surrounding mental health diagnoses through public exhibits and presentations and work in the community through the co-op. They also get paid photography opportunities through the co-op. And the cohorts of artists tend to kind of stick together through their years in the program, and some of them have been there a decade plus. And they grow to relate and trust each other, just have the feeling that they're not alone. a lot of times that can exacerbate a lot of mental health issues, is just the feeling that you're the only one. And when they discover they're not the only one and that they're loved and accepted in this community of artists, really amazing transformations can happen.
So the way that your position relates to health is very much related to social connectivity, really, at the heart of it.
Yeah, that is probably, aside from the art making itself, which has its own magic to it.
It's therapeutic value, kind of.
Yeah, it has a lot of therapy, just the self-expression, but like the self-expression within a community of others who are also expressing themselves and then having conversations about it and relating to each other, developing friendships. That's really what seems to lift people up the most about participation in APP's programs.
Yeah, that's amazing. And where is APP in Athens?
In the past, it operated out of Arts West and the Dairy Barn before it found its permanent home, which is down on West Union, just past Larry's Doghouse.
Okay, so we're recording out of the health department right now. It's right down the street.
Right down the street.
Great. And so you said AP has had a history at Arts West and at the Dairy Barn. How long has APP been around in the community?
It was founded in 2000 by a woman named Elise Sanford. She, I believe, had some family members that struggled with some severe mental health problems, and saw that the arts was a way that they could be more well if they had that in their lives. And so it was kind of a passion project for her in her retirement, was to start this program and get it going with a small number of artists at first. And since then, it's steadily been growing. We now have, I'm not sure how many exactly, but it's over 40 artists.
Wow.
Continuing. And then we have cohorts of introductory artists come in every year or every other year.
So for context, the Athens Photo Project has been in operation for 2 years longer than you've been doing photography.
Yep.
And 2 years shorter than I've been alive. Not a bad run.
No, and it's going strong.
Yeah. Have you been to any of APP's exhibitions that you mentioned? When was the last one you've been to? If you could just kind of describe it for us.
Yeah. Well, actually, the first one I went to was when I found out about APP. They have a rotating exhibit in the mall, and I was going to the mall to look for some sandals or something, and which I hardly ever go to the mall, but I looked over and there's this like shindig going on, and there's a bunch of photography on the walls, and I was just so shocked to see like a photo show in the mall. And yeah, stopped over, talked to the director, found out a little bit about APP, and like a few years later started that whole saga. The last one we had that was like an organization-wide, studio-wide show was at the Dairy Barn, I believe in 2020 or 2021, called Beyond the Surface. And because of COVID restrictions, we weren't able to do the usual like opening festivities where there's like snacks and lots of people come out and, you know, loiter around and look all the art. But some hundreds of people still did get to view the show over the few months that it was up at the Dairy Barn. I helped hang that one with, I helped set up, you know, all the stands and put the photos up and arrange them, and help the artists put up. For some of them, it was their first show, so that was very exciting. And it was great. It filled that whole upper gallery. We usually fill the whole upper gallery with our biennial shows. I was also a part of getting the youth exhibit last summer, or it went up in the fall. The work was made in the summer. The work went up in the fall at the 1,000 Words Uptown Parking Garage exhibit. If you've ever walked on Washington Street by the parking garage, you might have noticed some large photographs kind of coming out at an angle from the wall. It's a really neat public art installation, and we installed the youth classes work from last summer, and I participated in those classes and assisted in them, so that was really cool to see them put up their first exhibit too.
That's amazing. You just mentioned COVID and COVID restrictions. in your experience through both your service and your relationship with APP beforehand, did the organization have much difficulty, or like how was it for the organization to shift gears as COVID came and like really change the way we all had to operate in our work and our service?
Yeah. I was there as a volunteer whenever COVID restrictions first started being put into place, and it was a major shift. We were used to having fairly large groups in a classroom together in person twice a week, and we very quickly had to find a way to keep the art going and keep them together and keep them, motivated and making art despite all the scary stuff that was going on. And for a little while we had a Facebook group where we would just, post up photos and people could type in comments about them and, ask questions and stuff, and we could, communicate with the artists through that. That wasn't ideal. Some of our artists have some connectivity issues. We worked with, some of the other local organizations to try and get people hotspots and things like that. Eventually, we did figure out how to use Zoom, so we ended up doing Zoom classes. The classes did go down to once a week just because of just time necessities. I participated in those classes from an outdoor location all winter long, which was rough and cold. But it always gave the artists a bit of a laugh to see me on the screen all bundled up like a Sherpa guide.
As long as they're enjoying your predicament, it's worth it, right?
They thought it was great.
All right, so you have talked about classes and how they shifted through COVID. What kinds of classes does APP offer the community?
Every year we do 30-week long, that would be like 2 semesters. There's a break in the winter, but 30-week introductory and continuing adult classes. And in the summer, we do have several sessions for 8 weeks of youth classes, which would be late middle school into high school age kids mostly, and they meet twice a week. We have 2 instructors doing that this year. 2 of the groups meet at the APP studio, and then there are groups at a residential facility also for youth.
Okay, that's a widespread.
Yeah.
And there's also some professional services that people can access through APP, like headshots.
Yes, we can do portraits. The co-op does a lot of this stuff. The co-op is a group of advanced artists who are semi-autonomous in getting paid gigs in the community. They've done events, they've done portraits, headshots. They operate a pop-up photo booth sometimes at festivals, which is a lot of fun. They have lots of props and get to act silly, and people get to be funny in front of the camera. Yeah, wigs and things in your hands and hats and whatever. And they also make and sell a variety of photo-based products. If you ever run across, they're going to be at Burr Oak in July. There's like an arts and crafts fair going on. They make these big stars out of prints. They like cut up prints and make them into these big stars that you can hang up. They're really cool. And littler things too, cards and prints and like little magnets. Really neat stuff.
Very cool.
Oh, and we did a wedding this year for the first time. I got to be the lead on that, and it was so fun.
Eric Long's wedding?
It was Eric Long's wedding.
Eric Long, who was on our podcast talking about ComCore.
And it was the nicest wedding I've ever been to. It was great.
Well, that's really cool that there's all kind of branches there. Does like payment for those kind of services and goods, is that more for the benefit of the individual artists that are participating, or does some of it get funneled back to like APP for their operation?
I'm not entirely sure. I know the artists do get paid out of our fees.
Okay.
For any of those things. There probably is some of it that comes back to APP as well, since there is like staff support that's needed for some of those things and coordination. But I'd say probably the majority of it goes to pay the artists. Okay,
very cool. Let's rein it back, though. You were talking earlier about kind of the health impact and social connectivity and just kind of talking about how this really benefits the artists in the collective. Is there any effort to kind of show other people how to replicate this or to create other APP-like things in other communities?
Yes. Excuse me. Yeah, actually this year, staff and several of the more advanced artists participated in a workshop facilitation course that is aimed at exactly that, at being able to go out and offer shorter term workshop style photography activities at other places in the community, recovery houses, different support groups, shelter houses, places like that, where there's a need for our expressive style of photography and communication. So that's been ongoing, and I expect to see in the next couple of years a lot more of that happening out in the community.
Very cool. Very cool. Especially seeing that how well it's worked in our community and in that space. The fact that there's attempts at replication, there's attempts at spreading that and getting other people involved is really amazing.
Yeah, I think so. I think it can go beyond the walls of APP for sure.
In light of that, how can folks support APP and support their work, support your service?
Well, I mean, the simplest way is simply to donate. Donate money. You can do it at the website, athensPhotoProject.org. You can stop by the studio during the week. You can sign up for information on upcoming shows and come out to see the art, meet the artists, show them love. You can hire the co-op to shoot photos of your family reunion or of your business and, shoot photos for your website, things like that. And there's also, I believe, an e-commerce site. If it's not up yet, it should be very soon, where you can, purchase art for your home, for your business. And that'll be
through the website as well?
That should be through the website, yeah.
Okay. So a lot of different avenues for all of our listeners to go out and support APP in ways that benefits not only the organization, but yourselves. If you get some cool art, some professional headshots, whatever you need, really.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of art that I see come out of that studio, like every kind of photography you've ever seen. There's somebody there who that's their thing. There's landscape and nature stuff. There's portraits. There's street photography. There's weird stuff, which is my favorite.
Well, you said what, 40 plus artists?
Yeah.
So a lot of range.
Yeah, and not a one of them is the same.
I would like to kind of shift over to talk more about you, Jess, actually, and your ComCore position. What is your actual specific role called?
I am the Arts and Wellness Coordinator.
Okay. And what is, say, a week in your life or a day in your life, if you don't want to go that long, look like at APP?
Yeah, it varies a lot, kind of week to week. But a typical week, my time was often split between in-class direct support. I participated in all 5 adult sessions this past year, and I'm now participating in 2 of the youth sessions as program support, classroom assistant, just kind of an extra person for answering questions or making comments, giving feedback, things like that. So I did that all week, and then behind the scenes support for all those activities included managing the archives for all the artists, which could be tedious, but the upside is that I get to look at everyone's work as it coming in. So I get to see everything, and that's great. And then assisting in the class could be like conducting workshops, art history sessions, and going out on field trips, which were my favorite part, or participating in art reviews, which are like critiques, but not quite really. And then I also participated in class planning sessions and staff meetings on a pretty weekly basis.
Quite a lot, then.
It was a bit.
We already did talk about this as well earlier in terms of social connectivity and the mental health angle at APP. But where do you see the intersection of arts and mental health, not just in your site, but when you've served at other ComCore sites? Kind of compare, contrast. Where do you see kind of similarities in what APP does, if you do? Or do you feel like APP kind of stands out amongst the rest of the core sites?
Yeah, APP's I haven't been to all the sites, so I can't necessarily say it's unique, but it seems a little different, like from the school-based sites or from like Sojo and the health department and the sites that I have been to. It really focuses a lot on direct support of these specific artists and that are coming to the studio. And as far as like the intersection of arts and mental health, art's just such a potent tool when it comes to mental wellness.
Yeah.
Because it does kind of two contradictory things at the same time. It reaches from inside the artist to the outside world to speak to others, and at the same time makes the artist reach into themselves to make new connections within themselves, or connections to new ideas, connections to new places or things in the world that they may not have realized before, and would never have if not for picking up a camera and looking through the lens. It's the closest thing to magic I've ever experienced. It really is.
And knowing you, that's a big statement.
It's a big statement, yeah.
Do you find yourself interacting with many of the other local organizations, whether they're ComCore sites or other organizations locally, through your APP service?
I don't all that much myself.
Okay.
I do a bit of things with CFI.
Food distribution.
Yeah, food distribution, and also a little indirectly integrated services. We get a lot of our referrals for our classes, for our clients, come from integrated services and from Hopewell mostly.
Okay.
But APP often works with quite a few different organizations around, either on an ongoing basis, like the 317 Board and the Athens Foundation, Hopewell and Integrated, as I mentioned. And then kind of on a contract basis, we've worked with a lot of the different ComCore sites for photography services. We've helped out Rural Action and CFI. I think LHA. I've seen some photographs we've done there. So over the years, we've interacted a lot with the different ComCore sites.
Okay. That's definitely more connection than I would see at a lot of the other sites. You know, some places are just kind of insular, or at least the ComCore member isn't privy to that kind of relationship. So your position at APP, the ComCore position, while it is a volunteer position like all of our positions are, it seems like there's a lot of specialized knowledge that's required. Not only do you need to have some kind of knowledge of photography and art in general, but you also need to have an understanding of mental health diagnoses and relating to folks with mental health diagnoses. How does APP kind of ensure that it has the right person in that position? Because clearly they did a good job this year, but do you know anything about that process for them?
A little bit. First of all, I wouldn't necessarily say that those skills are required coming in the door. Okay. I happen to have a long history and skills in photography coming in the door, which sort of is what attracted me to the place in the first place. But I didn't really have a lot of experience outside of friends and family who had mental health diagnoses and struggles. Outside of that, I didn't really have much experience working with that population. So I wouldn't say it's a requirement, but you have to be open to that, and it requires a lot of compassion, and a lot of listening skills are very important, more so than some in-depth knowledge of psychology or anything. I wouldn't say that that's required. And also the APP position is a little bit different every year, and sometimes a lot different year to year, depending on what the members' skills and interests are. It's kind of a choose your own adventure in a way. The member works with the staff there to work out what it is they're most interested in participating in and where they think they can do the most good. So different skill sets are definitely welcome. I mean, of course, having at least an interest in and a little experience in art or photography is very helpful, but that kind of stuff can also be learned along the way. And that's not a bad thing. It makes the ComCore position a little more dynamic, I think, because the member can be doing something different year to year and offering new things in the studio. But that said, APP does tend to work a little bit backwards from the other sites when it comes to selecting its members. Very often, one or more of the staff members there will, they will come from one of the graduate assistants there, or a volunteer who's been working there, or somebody like that, who's been there a little bit, and they will be approached and offered the ComCore position, an interview for it before they even fill out the AmeriCorps application. So they'll interview for the position at APP, then fill out the AmeriCorps application and interview on that side. So it's a little, I'm under the impression that that's quite backwards from how it usually works.
Yes. So what I'm hearing is that the recruitment process is somewhat selective, more that it works from the site directly because they're seeking a very specific type of person, but also that it is really more about soft skills and things that can be picked up while you are serving at the site, and kind of the service you do can be tailored to your strengths.
Yes, definitely so. Because a lot of the technical skills, I work with the archives a lot, that isn't really that difficult once you've done it a couple of times. It's just something that you have to learn how to do on the computer. And once you've learned how to do it, you'll be able to do it. And it's not too hard, a lot of that stuff. And I mean, if you can take photographs on your cell phone, that's perfectly fine for participating and talking about photography. But yeah, a lot of the support skills, like the listening, the helping people problem solve, getting them what they need is just requires a certain personality, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really appreciate you coming to talk with us today, Jess. I just have one more kind of wrap-up question for you. What are just some highlights over this past year, some things that really give you life or really made you think during your service at APP?
Well, this year we did a studio-wide theme for the first time for all the classes. The theme was being in nature, and that's right in the middle of my wheelhouse. All of my personal work, since I started doing photography, has kind of revolved around the relationship between civilization and nature, and how those two come together, how they interact. So the whole thing was right there. I coordinated field trips to a whole bunch of my favorite places in the area with some of my also favorite people who work in ecology and herbalism and land restoration. So that was really a treat, just to get to go to all these beautiful places and share my friends with the whole studio, my plant and animal friends and some of my human friends, and, get them, excited about nature and loving what's out there. And that was really the highlight of the whole year, and getting to do that continuously was a joy. And then also doing the wedding was a big point of pride for me. I don't do weddings very often because they're a very long day and they're a long haul for the photographer. But this one was really special, and the photos turned out beautifully. And it was just a fun night, and I think everybody learned from it a lot too.
Both sound like great experiences, especially talking about being in nature. And again, that is so you, Jess. I can see how that just came together perfectly for the site. Amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, let's go for a walk.
Well, thank you again for being on our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. This is actually our second to last podcast of this year.
No.
Next, no, it's very sad. Next, we'll be recording with some folks from Children's Services in Athens County. So tune in for that next week. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Jess. Thank you to Logan. I'll pat myself on the back. Thank you to me.
Thanks, Ward.
Everyone, enjoy your weekends and enjoy your summer.